we have come to equate consumption with well-being. So we commonly understand that the more we consume, the better off we are. But this was not always so. This link that we now consider an obvious thing is actually the product of centuries of colonialism, extraction, and dispossession. And it's actually the other side of the coin of a project of progress and civilization that is based on increasing productivity and increasing the stuff that we buy and we sell to each other. We need to question this link. Let's do this by using the example of food. For instance, in many places in the global south, now people earn and spend more money in food than they did before. So in the numbers, they might seem to be increasing their well-being. But actually, in many places, this access to wage labor come at the expenses of losing community-owned land or losing traditional cultivation of local crops that were actually rich in biodiversity and food security. So in the numbers, it might seem that we're improving, but we're actually eroding that traditional capacity of giving well-being and taking care of all the communities. Questioning this assumption that more consumption is always good is fundamental when we talk about the ecological imperative, the ecological necessity of reducing our consumption or of consuming less. This call that we often do from a degrowth perspective is not a call to sacrifice or to live in a more or living a life under austerity. It's the opposite. It's an invitation to rethink life under the premise of radical abundance, of sharing, of a life outside commodified markets, of a life and community in which we take care of each other and no one goes without food or without what they need to survive just because they don't have the money. So whenever we rethink consumption, we need to take all these elements into account. Our current obsession with consumption as the only measure of well-being does not work in favor of global marginalized and dispossessed communities. On the opposite, it only benefits those who are rich and get richer by buying and selling stuff, by privatizing increasingly more spheres of our everyday lives. So more than focusing on moralizing consumption or consumerism, we need to look at the systemic features that have ingrained these machines of endless economic growth in our global economies. If we don't do that, there is no single individual choice that can change our economic system in the scale that we need to face our ecological crisis. And we need to always remember that the huge amount of stuff that now we have available in our shops for our consumption is not something natural or neutral. It's the result of global plunder, a plunder that comes from centuries-long colonial projects that continue reproducing and being legitimated by our economies today. So addressing these political inequalities must be at the heart of any project that wants to address the ecological crisis, because they are one and the same crisis. The challenge of transforming consumption will look very different depending on where you're standing. The divide between global north and global south is very important, but we must also remember that there are many norths in the south and many souths in the north. Nothing is clear-cut. The only thing that is certain is that the global ecological movement must have global justice and global solidarity as a core value in all its struggles.